San Gorgonio Park and finding the amendment categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. This is a continued public hearing from what seems like just yesterday, I guess a couple days ago, to consider an amendment to the San Gorgonio Marsh Park Plan, discontinue use of pickleball courts and reestablish the use of tennis at the property.
We do have speaker cards.
Okay, we got speaker cards. Yeah, let's well, you have to have speakers allowed for each agenda item. So we do have 2 items here. Please limit the speakers for this item to specifically about the master plan amendment, because we also have the other item, which is about transitioning the actual use of the courts from pickleball. So those are two different topics. So if you have a comment in for item 1A, make sure that that is very specifically about whether there should be a master plan amendment. And of course, we have the agenda packets in the back of this room. Yeah, so let's we know what this topic's about. I don't think we need any staff presentation or anything. Let's hear some public comments.
Okay, the first.
And how many do we have, man?
1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 so far for 1A.
For 1A. And is there more for 1B?
We have 2 here, and then we have a couple that said that they wanted to speak on both. So we have about 4 for B.
Okay, so here's the reality. We have 1 council member here. We'd like to have all the council members here to vote. Who's going to be leaving at 5 p.m., right? So not to dissuade people from making comments or anything like that, but if you'd like us to be able to get to a vote where we have a full council, which I would like, on these items, please use your discretion in making comments, I guess, so that we can try and get to this item.
Since we've heard this testimony a couple of days ago, would it be appropriate because of the being short within a half hour, would we limit the time to, let's say, 2 minutes or 1 minute?
1 minute. I guess we can limit the time. Yeah, I think that's fine.
I would say.
The other thing we could also do is take item 1B first, right? So item 1B, or we have to go in order to do that?
We need to go in order.
Because of the way that these 2 work together?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so then let's, I mean, 2 minutes would be good. I think 1 minute, I mean, we know about this item, right? I'm sorry, I know we want to give the public time to speak, but we're going to try and do 1 minute here. So let's, do we have support for 1 minute? No, this is fine. And again, we always want to get the public, but we just talked about this. Yeah, so, okay, so we will hear comments. Again, you have 1 minute. We have the timer and everything.
Yeah, we have a timer.
Okay.
Yep.
So let's hear, who are our first 3 speakers?
First speaker is resident Sanji 1. Second speaker is Amanda Q. And third speaker is Richard Finlay.
Okay, and I apologize, but you do have 1 minute.
Should I go here?
Yeah, yes, please.
As we attended the meeting this week that wasn't resolved, I would like to just say this. California Civil Code 3480 describes a public nuisance, an activity on private property that annoys or endangers a considerable number of people, but it doesn't have to be a considerable number. It could be person, community, resident, so on and so forth. We have come to you for over 3 years about the pickleball noise. It's in a residential area, residential street in which I live on, and I have to deal with that noise daily. It is a nuisance. It's against the law. A police officer, if I was a nuisance at my own home and you were called, you would have to come to my home, warn me, ticket me, take me to jail. You would remove the problem. Well, the same should go for pickleballers at San Clemente Park, where I am right across the street and have to listen to it daily. Is my minute up?
Yes, sorry, it's going to be very quick. Certainly understand where you're coming from. Appreciate it.
So at the June 6th City Council meeting, it was Director Samantha Wiley that said the public and the basically said close the pickleball courts at San Gorgonio in conjunction with this reopening of the site at Steve Park. So I looked at the agenda, and it's agenda number 4. It says authorize and direct staff to close the pickleball courts at San Gregorio Park as soon as construction of the temporary facility at Steve Park is completed. But it's amazing to me that the narrative developed, this false narrative that no one knew about it. Neither the public nor the city council members. It was. Public hearings are done for changes in the general plan amendment and municipal codes, and also specific plans. This is not applicable. In 2018, when the master plan was amended from San Luis Rey to San Gregorio Park, there was no public hearing. So I reached out to the city manager, and he sent me a staff report for 2018, and there was no resolution in that, and there was no public hearing. So why are we having it now?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Richard?
And the next 3 speakers?
Wheeling tires, cars without exhaust pipes, chalk against the blackboard, all annoying. A pickleball against a paddle, that's constant. Day after day, hour after hour. The other noises go away. You might hear it once in a while. The pickleball, you hear it hour after hour, day after day. Annoying. Due to the constant noise, there are and other traffic problems and numerous other problems, there were numerous meetings on this. The residents came from you, and you worked a plan to get Steve Park. You accomplished that. And we were told pickleball would be closed and tennis courts would be brought it back as it was designed. Since it's limited time, I have a lot to say, but bottom line, June 6th, you said you were going to close pickleball courts once Steve Park was established. Please do that as it was signed.
Appreciate it. Next 3 speakers?
Next 3 speakers, Susan Brewer, Stephen Bates, Susan Ambrose.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan Brewer. The city has closed the pickleball courts at San Gregorio, and they need to remain closed. The courts are to be changed to tennis courts as originally designed, as the city council voted in June. I very much respect that pickleball ambassador Gigi Harris and Marty Weinberg spoke against reopening pickleball courts at San Gregorio because we negotiated in good faith. The council cannot in good faith complete the arrangement for one party and not the other. The council needs to represent all residents. Does the San Luis Rey community also need to be concerned about pickleball returning to their local park? The city has closed the pickleball courts in San Gregorio, and they need to remain closed.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Go ahead. Who is it?
Stephen Bates.
Okay. And Susan Ambrose is next.
Again, you might have gotten an email from me this morning, and I apologize for its length, but it goes through a solution for San Gregorio. I also have mathematical models which show why certain decisions are the smart decisions, which council, I think, might not understand, and I want to make myself available to show you these models, go through them, make the right decision now instead of the wrong decision, and then correct it later. Thank you.
Speaker materials are in the back.
Thank you, sir. Susan.
Good afternoon, City Council members. I'm a former Beaches, Parks, and Recreation Commissioner. I now sit on the City Coastal Advisory Committee. I'm here to tell you that I was present on June 6th when you declared that the pickleball stuff would be taken from San Gregorio, and I am here to ask you please to follow through on your word. They worked very hard. Petitions of over 300 people from San Gregorio were given to you at one point prior to my being a commissioner. It's really important that we stick to what we promised our community members. Thank you very much.
Last speaker is Christy Pittman.
Hello, my name is Christy Pittman, and I am
to tennis courts as the city decided back on June 2nd. I think from the meeting before, the neighborhood was a little bit duped, I would say, because it didn't say on the agenda, reopen pickleball. It just said, update master plan to these specific things. So I would like the city to consider that the decision was made, and that decision took a long time, and it was very painful. And hundreds of emails, hundreds of comments, and it's a passionate subject. So I would like the city just to keep to the council's word of June 2nd and restore, the tennis courts, like promised. Thank you.
That's the final speaker for A.
What's that?
The final speaker for
on
A.
that item on 1A. So, okay. Do we want any discussion here? We have here a staff recommendation based on some council direction that would change the master plan to discontinue pickleball at Court 1, and then of course leave pickleball available at Court 2. Any discussion on that, or
Yeah,
or we want to do a motion?
I'd like a brief discussion. I visited Steve Park yesterday, spent an hour up there. I was extremely impressed with the community participation in pickleball. It was inclusive from the people in the 20s, the people in their 80s, all got along great. It looked like a great social event. It was well organized. They were teaching, they were playing, all the courts were full. With that said, I wouldn't want to live across the street from it with the noise, but it was great. I'm all for making sure that we provide a location for enough locations for pickleball players to play in our community. With that being said, I'm not going to be in favor of opening any courts for pickleball in Sanji Park. I'm going to go with the original decision by the council, the deal that we made. Call it a deal that spent $1.2 million of taxpayers' money, and that was going to be that we were going to build courts, which we did, and that we were going to close Sanji. That's what I'm going with. I would ask, I don't know how my fellow council members are going to feel about that. I would ask, though, I spoke to Mr. Bates today, looked at his information, and if you do decide not to go with the original commitment to close the courts, that you at least figure out a way to do some major compromises if you decide to allow pickleball to be at Sanji Park.
This is only about changing the master plan at this point, but yeah.
So we're just voting on A right now, which is just at the one court, turning that one into a tennis court.
Yes, just as changing the plan, which currently allows pickleball at both courts, to allow pickleball only at Court 2 and have tennis be at Court 1. That's all we're voting.
Yeah, I'm ready to make a motion to approve the staff recommendation, resolution number 23132.
We have a second? I'll second it. Okay, motion is Enmeyer, second is Cabral. Councilmember Enmeyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Leffler.
No.
Councilmember Cabral. Aye. Mayor Pro Tem Noel.
No, I'm not going to support this, and the reason is, as Councilman Laughlin mentioned, we did a Herculean effort to transfer these courts to Steve for the very purpose of giving the folks at San Bruno Park I'm commenting on my vote, and I just think it's fair. We've given relief to the neighbors of San Bruno. I think the folks at San Bruno deserve the same respect, so I vote no.
I appreciate that and very valid concerns. I do believe that this closure and this amendment strikes the appropriate balance. So I'm going to vote aye, and motion passes with no block and Leffler voting no. That's the first one. Item 1D is consideration of transitional use of pickleball courts at San Antonio Park. recommendation of limited use guidelines and finding the actions exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Okay, and we do have Samantha Wiley here, I think, to present on that, and we'll hear some comments.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and Samantha Wiley, Beaches Parks and Recreation Director. The item in front of you is consideration of how to best utilize the 4 pickleball courts that will remain at San Gregorio Park. Based on council direction from Tuesday evening, council expressed strong consideration for reducing the impact on traffic and those elements within the San Gregorio Park area. So before you in the staff report is a recommendation to consider court hours from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekdays only. There will be no courts open at San Gregorio on the weekends. Staff would also seek to prioritize city lessons at that site, encouraging beginner to intermediate use only. Additionally, we would not allow for a challenge court to be set up at that park site. Steve Park would remain the challenge court facility as well as the advanced court play. With that, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Any questions?
Just one question, you put the time frame from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Is there a reason for those times?
Well, I wouldn't encourage anything past 4 p.m. because that's when our fields are heavily used. 9 a.m. Could be flexible, it could go to 10 a.m., but again, we wanted to be cognizant of any early morning activity there and any impact on that street in the area as well.
Could you make it 10 to 3?
Certainly.
Okay.
I think yeah, on that point, the kids coming home from school, the transition, even 1 to 2 is even a better transition.
Okay.
I would actually go in reverse and push to go to 5 o'clock because I'm thinking the high schoolers don't get out at 3:20 and then high schooler wants to play pickleball.
Yes.
Then
So here's a question I have related to the closure especially, right? So now you're gonna have like a tennis court there, and then you're gonna have 4 pickleball courts. So the tennis court, would the tennis court be guided by these same guidelines, or would the tennis court be like, well, if you're playing tennis, you can go? Because I don't know how we kind of get into enforcement there. So what are you seeing there?
The council has 2 options, but based on the staff report, the recommendation would be whatever hours are applied to pickleball, apply to tennis as well, given the layout of the court facility. If council wanted to differentiate the 2, staff would recommend putting up a fence in between the 2 courts. Knowing the usage of those courts, it's very difficult to say pickleball you can't play now, but tennis can when it's accessible still. And a cost for fence in between the 2 courts is about $20,000.
Okay. So how about, and is it best to use a hard time like 9 a.m. to 4 versus like dusk or something like that might be flexible and adjust over time?
It is easier for staff to control a hard time.
Right, okay. Any other questions?
One more comment I think for us to consider is that we look at this again in about a 6-month time period to see is this working? Did we see a noise reduction? Did it have any impact at all? Just a staff assessment in 6 months is what
Absolutely, I think that's a good idea. And also to note that the staff recommendation does also include the direction to staff to consider options to expedite future expansion of pickleball facilities. And I assume that means it's Angie at a different location.
Correct.
Okay, by the freeway. And also to look at opportunities to establish revenue through the existing court system to help pay for that kind of a project. So just to note that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I applaud staff's recommendations to try to mitigate
You might want
this.
to take public comment before you
Yeah, hold on.
Oh, I didn't know there was any, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
So,
Counselor?
any other questions for Samantha? Okay. And how many public comments?
5, 6,
6, and we will 7.
7.
And we will, again, we have 1 minute. Sorry for the expedited timeline, but it's sort of necessary to the process, and I think we're familiar with the argument, but we do want to hear from everybody.
Okay.
So first 3 speakers.
Olga Resnick, Christy Pittman, and John Tilton.
At the Tuesday meeting, the residents of Gargonia Street were blindsided by the Trojan horse agenda item of 8F. The whole purpose of which was to reopen PB in St. G Park again. A decent person is expected to keep the word once given. At this point, it's hard to designate some Clemente concealed majority as decent people. Somebody needs to stand for a little guy. It is not right when a large community of PB players intimidates the concealed members into submission at the expense of the well-being and health of a much smaller number of we San Gargonia residents. This is not America we know and love. If this was true, the slavery, open minority discrimination would be still running today. Some players were making points about that if you live at the park, then you need to tolerate the noise coming from it. We are living just in front of the kids' playground. It does not bother us at all. The opposite, it's happy sound all day long.
Thank you, appreciate that, man. Sorry I
Christy Pittman, followed by John Tilton, followed by Richard Finlay.
Hello, Christy Pittman again. I'm reading this, that this is going to establish pickleball again, but it's going to exempt from CEQA, and I just don't see how you can have an activity that has never been analysis, you know, the analogy or the analysis hasn't been done. So how can you have a sport in there without any of the preliminary go-ahead? And then also making it dual. It's been tried. Pickleball and tennis don't, the people are all great, but the sports don't get along. You would need to put a fence with the sound barrier between the two, and you do have gates for both sides. So you could have limited time on one and open on the other if you have a gate with the sound barrier in between the two, or a fence with the sound barrier in between.
Thank you.
Miranda Fielding told us Tuesday night what it was like before the pickleball courts were built. And I remember what it was like too. I remember seeing people living in their cars in the morning. I remember seeing condoms in the parking lot. I remember seeing people relieving themselves out of bushes. I don't see that anymore. Is there noise? Yes. But with the noise dampening fencing that this man was influential in building, the noise is within every safe parameter that the city has requested. The fact is, his system worked. Is there noise? Yes. But again, it's safe. It's within reason. I moved here from Vegas 10 years ago. I know how to gamble. Is a little bit of noise for a safe, functional park that increases my property value worth it? Or should we gamble taking away pickleball, have less foot traffic, more illicit activity, an unsafe park, and lower property values? Which bet is better for us? Thank you.
Pickleball and tennis together, they don't mix. One is a social group, they're loud, they're great people. Where tennis are concentrating and they just don't mix. And this isn't, putting them together, it's doomed to fail. And you not, and June 6th, you made a statement that you're going to close the pickleball courts in San G. I say stand by your word. And you haven't heard from us since June 6th, but you will hear from us. Unfortunately, the noise is going to be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Brewer, followed by Marty Weinberg, followed by Heather Brown.
Hello, Susan Brewer. I want to remind the council that they are reversing the vote that they made just in June. And the pickleball courts were just closed a couple days ago. We haven't had a cooling off period. We haven't had time to try this out. And now that we're working on a compromise, and I hear from tennis players that it's hard to play beside pickleball, and that would need to be totally separate, and that would be that expense. And so we're losing we still have the traffic, we still have the noise, and we lose a tennis court. And the other party gets their 4 courts, Richard C. Park, and more courts coming. How is this situation and how is this deal equitable? And, what about the studies of putting the pickleball court back and us losing our tenants? Please consider our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor, Marty Weinberg, Ambassador. I had a little bit more than a minute, but here goes. Pickleball community should realize that this is what a compromise is. Sanji's closed, and we promised to keep it closed and revert back to tennis. So being able to play 5 days a week for 6 or 7 hours is a generous compromise. Especially after we've heard how the pickleball noise is affecting the health of some of the neighbors. There was there was Crown Valley. They had an issue with noise complaints, and the pickleball community agreed that they would play Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's 3 hours per day. So this compromise is pretty generous, and people should be grateful. And also, 1 minute's not enough.
Thank you. Sorry, Marty.
Hi, I'm Heather. I'll be fast. Thank you for listening to the pickleball community. Really quick, we're thrilled. I'm thrilled as a tennis player and as a pickleball player to be playing on Sanji courts again. Just as a reminder, though, your city classes are usually from 11 to 4 o'clock. And having been there, seeing how busy those are, I know Bill and Buzz and those guys play a little bit afterwards, after the 4 o'clock time period, and so they play for like a good half hour with one another, and then they kind of incorporate over into the regular group when we used to play with them. So I'm grateful that the beginners and intermediates will be there, and it's given like the community, like we talked about earlier this week, that they'll be able to have a chance to play in their own community and be able to not feel overly. It's so chaotic now, even at Steed, because there's so many of us wanting to play, even from the business park coming down, and their little meetup groups and whatnot. But like I said, if we had 4 courts at Sanji, just help alleviate some of the courts that we had. The 8 courts were great, but we trade like for like, and we really do need to become a city where it has more pickleball courts. Thank you.
Next 3 speakers are Judy, resident Sanji, and Kevin.
As a professional that works in this community and all around the state of California, I will tell you, no, it doesn't raise the prices of your real estate. It depends on where you're at. Real estate agents have to explain to their buyers or the sellers that they have to disclose about the nuisance that's in that park. So anybody on that street that's affected will have to tell people that want to buy on that road about the sound of pickleball. So everybody who comes up here and steps up here and tries to say that the value of your house goes up, no, it doesn't, and it can cost you the sale of a house. I hope you consider that, because they're speaking blindly. So there you have it, from a professional that works in all of Southern California. I know what I'm talking about.
I'll buy your house 10% above market tonight.
I would be able to afford it.
Is Judy here?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, thank you for talking about this, for goodness sakes. I'm a tennis player, and I will be the first to admit it's very difficult to play next to pickleball at the same time. So let's think about it. If you change the hours for pickleball, how about making the other hours for tennis? I realize that requires a fence or some way to lock up the other side. But just a thought. My other comment is, if you plan to build 8 courts over by the freeway, oh, what a great idea. But they can't park by the freeway. They have to come through the neighborhood and park into the San Antonio area. We'll have the same traffic problem with 8 courts. So it's not going to go away if you move it to another and leave it in a community park. Thank you.
And last speaker is Kevin.
So it's the council's agenda now to designate San Clemente as the pickleball capital of the world, words of Mr. Duncan. It's not the right to keep appeasing pickleball players by assigning not unlimited city funds to constantly increasing appetite of the players. By promising them more courts where the majority does not even live in San Clemente, the taxpayers of the city are not obligated to foot the bill for their enjoyment. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of urgent issues where the money can go. Schools, infrastructure, law enforcement, homelessness, etc. It looks like the more you give them, the more they want. The pickleball players are being very successful at leveraging the San Clemente Council, where they found a soft ground. Look it up and see how many courts Dana Point has. It looks like 0. When you open the website of Global Pickleball Network, the website states Dana Point has 23. Then you scroll down and see where the courts are. The addresses are listed: San Gorgonio Park, Avenida Vista, Montana, and also Richard T. C. Milwaukee.
That's the last speaker.
That's last.
Okay, again, going back, I'd like to thank staff for doing a great job of trying to come to a compromise. If there's any chance of this working, I think they've given the best possibility for that to happen. This is not a comment on pickleball community. I'm a fan of it. I want to propagate it in town, but my vote's going to be no on this. It's not about saying no to the staff or no to pickleball. It's saying yes to the taxpayers and the residents that we made a commitment to.
Look, pickleball is a public good. People are exercising, they're getting their mental health out. My students who struggle with a lot of issues at school, they have found enjoyment in that, and I'm excited to see these courts hopefully turn back into more of a community area. People learning, young families coming out. That's going to help. And we'll do a 6-month assessment with this, and see if we need to do changes after that. That's what I'm hoping council will approve. I would like to see it go to 5 p.m. mainly because of my high school students who don't get out till 3:20. They need a place to go after. That'd be a great spot. So.
I would. I agree with you. I've heard. There's 2 sides. There's 2 legitimate sides to this issue, and I think I've heard both sides. There's legitimate arguments on both sides. I think when we voted last time, circumstances have changed. We created these new courts in an effort to take people up there and out of San Diego and up into Steve. And I think that's happening. I think it will continue to happen, that people will go up there. But we've also heard from a number of people, plenty of people, that still like the local atmosphere in that local park. I do not want it to be what it was in the past. I hope it won't be what it was in the past. I know it won't be because of this balance, this compromise that's been struck. I will vote to, I think you have a compromise, or this compromise. I will support this compromise. And I will say, if it doesn't work, as some people say, we're reversing our vote, we'll reverse it again. We'll take a look at circumstances as they are in 6 months or sooner if people come. If it doesn't work, we're going to change our vote again. We're going to look at, we're going to analyze, we're going to listen to the community and look at what people are saying. And if we have to, we will reverse our vote. It's not a commitment. And I will tell people completely, this is not a permanent commitment. That when we vote, we don't say it's forever. It's until circumstances change. And a lot of the circumstances I voted on are issues that are dealt in closed session, and I can't talk about, so I will not talk about them. But they are, major concerns for me.
The city attorney appreciates it.
Well, probably not. And so I will say, I think this might be the right compromise. Nobody is winning here. I mean, the pickleball players who want it open 7 days a week,
8 courts, yeah.
8 courts from morning to they're going to take the loss too. So I would like it to be, and I think the compromise with the no challenge courts and having more of the teaching happen there where it's not the high impact sport, it's a quieter learning experience. If we can get that done and we direct staff to do that, we can make it a quieter place where the local residents who really want to play there can go there. And the other larger group will go up to Steve Park. So that's a wrap.
I like the concept of a compromise. I'm not in favor, but I like the fact that if the majority of this council wants to have an additional 4 courts left open, that we give the neighbors as much relief as possible. So on this item, I can support a compromise, but I would like to see it less hours. I think for the high school students that get out, they have an option, and there are 8 courts, beautiful courts at Steve Park, and they're free to play as long as they like.
Dangerous for our kids to
But
ride
I
out
think
people on
the
their
neighbors-
bikes.
But I think the neighbors' duty is as much a consideration as possible, so I'd like to see those hours shortened if at all possible.
Appreciate that, and I think all these points have been made, so I don't want to delay things, but I hope everybody understands. We're trying to come to a balance here. We're trying to lessen the complaints and the impacts on that community. That's what this is about, right? So it's not going to be perfect, but I think we're moving towards that, and we have a part of, I think, what the direction is going to be is to check up in 6 months. So.
Can I add one more thing? I hope that after this, we can lower the tension between our different groups. We can have civil discourse, we can talk with each other, we can disagree with each other, but still realize we are part of the same community in this. And I know that this can be emotional on both sides of this aisle here, but I'm hoping that with a compromise, with no side leaving satisfied, that we can still see our commonality in putting sanctimony first.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. You know, usually in the past history, it's the council that's had the divisiveness and yelling and screaming at each other. Now it's the residents. This is very refreshing. We're all going to vote differently, I think, but we're all of agreement that we want the best for the city, and there's no contentiousness up here. Let's try to keep that in the community also.
Fantastic. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we adopt resolution 923-133 with an amendment to limit court operations to weekdays 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
And add
a 6-month review.
And add a 6-month review to this as well.
We need courts on the weekends too, it's busy.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I'd like to offer a
Come back in
substitute.
6 months.
I'd like to offer a substitute motion, and that would be to approve resolution 23-133 with the items 1 through 4 as listed in the conditions with a 6-month modification, but modifying item 3 to allow the courts to be open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay. Before we get to that, was there a second on the first motion?
There was.
Okay. So is there a second on the substitute motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Do you have that, Megan?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we did a substitute motion first, which is limiting the hours to, what was that again?
9 to 3 p.m.